Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Yep, check out our podcast below in the description as well.
Also, it's kickoff week. So how about a Tito's kickoff, John? Doesn't that look good?
Yep, make a Tito's soda water and put a little OJ in there as well.
Look at you, that cinnamon blue shirt. First of all, how cool is just UCLA LSU Saturday night, 70,000 people at the Rose Bowl? Like, that was appointment television, wasn't it?
I thought that was the coolest game of the day. I'm not saying it was like the best game. I thought it was just, now I'm biased, but that game was sweet. And LSU might turn out to be a 6-win team, and Chip clearly has a pretty solid squad. Now, I thought the Tigers were going to kick his ass. I was rooting going into the game for the Tigers to win.
And I remember on the podcast,
you did not.
I did not. I thought they could win.
Yeah, you did not. And a lot of people did. I think a lot of people thought UCLA was better. I just thought, like, I don't even, his coaching, you watched, like, they manhandled them. They kind of shoved them around. It was pretty nuts, actually. I'm shocked. Listen, any team could, Power 5 teams play each other. It's not that crazy, but they kicked their ass. Like, you got to give Chip his flowers a little bit, right? I mean, is that a little bit of I'm back?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big part of it was that this is not Chip Kelly's first year. It's his fourth, and he has a 5-year contract, and there's a new athletics director. And so guys in college, we talked about this the other day, you don't coach on the last year of your contract. So this is the year, this is the make or break year for him. And there are a lot of people based on their roster who have been around the program who think that they were going to be good this year. There were a lot of people who thought they were going to be better last year, and they were, and then their record didn't really reflect it. I think to look the way they did, where it was clear pretty early in that game, right? Whatever LSU is, maybe they're bad enough that Ed Orgeron gets fired this year. Whatever they are, you have to. I also think this gets a little. It's one thing. Teams change over the course of a year. So if you beat a team week 1, and then they turn out to be bad, the team that loses week 7 isn't necessarily the team that week 1 was a top 16 team, right?
Yeah.
And because I remember we'd always talk about this around Fresno State. Like, if Fresno State beat Nebraska and then Nebraska was bad, it'd be like, see, Nebraska was bad. And it was like, well, maybe one of the reasons Nebraska struggled is because they lost to Fresno State, and that had an effect on their team. That's you look for things, John. Illinois wasn't that bad until the Dogs beat them. But my point is, here's what I knew watching that game. UCLA was going to have to earn it watching that game against LSU, right? They're down 7-0. They score. It's tied. They score again. It's 14-7. LSU, number 1, name is Butte. Like, he scored that big touchdown.
He's sweet.
He's sweet. Kind of looks like Jamar Chase. But, like, you were going to have to earn it. And the thing to me that stands out about UCLA, and I saw it week 0, but I'm like, it's Hawaii. I don't quite know what to make of this. And you saw it from the jump against LSU, like they were blitzing. They were flying around on defense. Like, to me, they look pretty good on defense.
I agree. Weren't they the youngest team in the country a couple years, like Chip's first year, second year? Didn't he just like play every freshman or something?
Yeah, and now they're a veteran team. They got this guy Zach Charbonnet who transferred from Michigan. Doesn't he look sweet? 24, the running back.
Yeah, to me, I think when you think Chip Kelly, like just the average guy, not someone who truly like watched every Oregon snap, but when you think Chip Kelly, you just think like this innovative, progressive new style offense. So I think a lot of people's mind, they'd be like passes, right? That's just what dynamic offensive coaches do, passes. He's actually, when you truly think about his Oregon teams, the craziest part was, now the Pac-12 was pretty shitty for a couple years when he was taken off, right? Pete left, Harbaugh. Harbaugh was just that his team was a bad matchup against Chip, just the way they played, even though they had some great games. But the Washington schools were bad. Guy, they would have like 3-play drives, all runs. It'd be like 3 plays, 90 yards, touchdown, all runs.
Remember,
he ran the shit out of the ball. He's a running coach.
Yes.
Like
they were
he
top
wants to
5
run
rushing team in the country.
Yeah, and you just watch him. Like, if they can gash you running it with his like kind of crazy run scheme, which he's an elite run game caller, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. And as we saw yesterday, now they're in the South, which is clearly, I mean, it was a rough day for the North, right? It was a lot of, Washington lost to Montana. Cal lost to Nevada. Oregon State lost to Purdue.
Yeah, Washington State lost at home to Utah State.
Yeah, there's some bad
And
L's.
Stanford looked pretty bad against Kansas State.
Arizona State won.
Arizona State won on Thursday against Southern Utah.
Played.
Utah beat Weber State on Thursday. Colorado beat Northern Colorado on Friday.
So all the South teams won.
SC
Beat San Jose State.
Arizona lost to BYU. Hey, this video brought to you in part by DraftKings. Sign up with the promo code HAM right now and get in our league. Link is below.
Also, check out our friends at sleepnumber.com/ham. Biggest sale of the year this week, Labor Day, baby. Let's go. Okay. But
SC won. And
Arizona's one of the worst. Might be the worst team in the conference. Well,
Arizona should, yeah. I mean, I think coming in, people think that, yeah. We'll see if Washington State, I don't know. But
like I think there's, and listen, like UCLA has no business ever being 12-0. But if Chip somehow this year, I don't know who else. I guess they play Fresno State.
They play Fresno
who beat
State
them a couple years ago.
Yep. But now UCLA's on a bye. UCLA's 2-0, and they got a bye now.
Well, Fresno gets Cal Poly this week, so let's say they win that game. Is there a chance they go 10-2 this year? Like they could have a really good record, right?
Well, obviously they played LSU, but if you would take in the game UCLA played and just put it against any of the other Pac-12 opponents from Week 1, it was still the most impressive game anybody played, regardless of opponent. USC, I thought was pretty. USC looked solid.
I saw a lot of people shitting on them. Like San Jose State, it's not like some joke anymore. Like they were fine.
No, San Jose State actually has 2 years ago put a major emphasis into interior JC transfers on the defensive line.
I think the Mountain West I've been texting you. I think the Mountain West this year is really good.
Well, Utah State clearly is better, right? They were a mess. They got the guy they hired from Arkansas State, but
that is legit. Fresno looks awesome. I know Boise lost kind of a heartbreaker to UCF, but they're clearly going to be solid. Like that conference. If I'm the Pac-12, I'd probably get out of the business of playing those teams.
Yeah,
because
BYU's 4 more times on the schedule, by the way, this year.
So I would get away from that.
Might be coming.
Yeah, I think it probably is. But I give Chip credit as a hater of Chip. Like, listen, I wanted Edo to win, but Chip,
I did not.
Ed had an incredible season 2 years ago. Like, Chip outclassed him. And Ed has better players.
I don't know if
Chip would. A lot of the guys on LSU would start for them, right?
I don't know if I said this the other day, but there is just a fundamental coaching matchup in that game that UCLA had the advantage in head coach.
Chip versus their defense.
Yeah, not that. I mean, Ed was 6-1 in the Pac-12. He won a national championship. So I'm not. I think it's easy. I'm just saying, in terms of scheming, right? Chip versus Ed,
Oh, you're saying you're giving him credit for the year when he filled in?
Yeah.
He filled in for Lane?
Won a bunch of games.
Yeah, he did.
I think it's easy, a team wins a game and be like, just dismiss Eddie O. I don't want to dismiss Eddie O, but clearly the staff that he had when they won the national championship was a major factor. Now, that's okay. Not every coach is the schemer. Sometimes you got to be the CEO. And there are coaches who are the schemer and then transition off to being the CEO. But, that was it's as good as, is it the best? I was trying to think the last best West Coast, Stanford dominated Wisconsin in a bowl game, regular season games though. Oregon.
I do think beating I know they're coming off a rough year, but that program, that's beating LSU. That's a national champion coach 2 years ago. That's a pretty fucking big game.
Especially when Patrick on YouTube said LSU had the hurricane to deal with, which is true. And Chip, it was the first thing Chip acknowledged after the game. What that team's had to deal with this week, they didn't get to spend all week at home doing their normal.
But they circumvented the hurricane in the sense that they left to Texas before the hurricane came.
But that's
right?
the point. It's they had to displace in preparation for a game.
Not easy.
But I also think part of this is it's not just how good is LSU going to be. It's just we've spent so much time on the West Coast talking about, can you just win one of these headline games as a league? And with UCLA, Chip being such a lightning rod just because of how famous and how big he is, and for them to do it. Terry Donahue, I didn't know a ton about him before he died in July. He was the coach at UCLA that people loved, and he was the coach during UCLA's best years. It's kind of crazy on the West Coast. We always used to talk about Fresno State they're a sleeping giant. But if you think about the sleeping giants in the West, SC needs to get better. But they're not, everyone's aware. SC is just constantly, you're talking about them all the time. I was thinking about this because I saw Joel Klatt tweeted his 5 favorite college football helmets. And to me, if you grew up in the 90s, there was one clear winner. Joel didn't have it. Florida State. I think it's like the number. We do not talk about Florida State anymore, really. Like SC, you still talk about all the time, even though they're not what they once were, but they're what you think they should be. Florida State doesn't even get the like, this is what Florida State should be conversation anymore, like USC does. But I think UCLA is just UCLA has to be the sleeping giant on the West Coast, given the location, right? It's really critical.
They've never paid that much with coaches.
I know,
they
they've
have
never
some like
felt
academic.
Like they're all in on football.
Yeah, they've just viewed. I mean, it's different because they've been better historically than Kentucky, but like a Kentucky or a Duke, like basketball is first. It's one of the rare Power Fives where it's like clear. Like Kansas is always bad at football, but whatever. Like Kentucky's had some moments. Obviously, Duke, even North Carolina. You know, I thought everyone kind of anointed them and they got their ass kicked against Virginia Tech. But it's football. The difference though is UCLA, like in the '90s when we were kids, was really good at football.
Yeah.
And when my cousin Nick got on the team, I think in like 2001. I remember he always said, like, when I got there, we had been kicking Pete, Pete wasn't there yet. We had been kicking SC's ass. Like, we were kicking their ass in the 90s. And then Pete showed up, that Carson Palmer last year, and then everything changed. There's a famous story in the Meat Market book. Our buddy Joe Bernardi's dad, who was the offensive line coach for UCLA, and Ed Ogeron, who was just hired or kept on the staff for Pete Carroll, and they started butting heads. And it just, obviously, Pete changed it, but I'm with you. UCLA should be really good. Now, here's the one thing, like Chip, I'll give him this. Like, he doesn't fake it. Like, his personality is his personality. I saw, like, what do you think about being ranked or not ranked? He's like, I don't care. Like, he is just very blunt and candid in a way of like, I don't give a shit. And maybe that's refreshing, after a while, because when you're not winning, it's like, oh my God, fake it a little bit. But he has not pivoted. I will give him that, as someone who had, ultimately fired by the guy and had some questionable interactions. Not renewed, yeah. He has been pretty consistent, I would say.
He made
from
middle
Oregon,
work on the last year of his contract.
Oregon.
That's on Howie, John.
Philly,
that's on Howie.
49ers. Yeah, the Eagles were only giving Koff 1-year deals. I had to fight for it. So I got a chip on my shoulder. I got longer deals in Fresno State as a GA, but he is true to himself. Would you agree with that? Like, he's just very true to like it's not even a shtick, it's just his personality, which is way different than most guys.
Yeah, and it's
he's different.
The Philly thing, the Niner thing, the first 3 years in UCLA, the belief that he has in what it is that he can do and what he does, to not give the offense to somebody else year 4 and be like, all right, well, yeah, okay. It's a massive story. Now, like, Patrick says, no ACC team, Pac-12 team gets in, ? To me, it's as simple as who's a one-loss team. Because Clemson, I said this last week, someone was going to lose that Clemson-Georgia game. I think Clemson has a better chance of coming back from it because Georgia's going to be good. Clemson can just go unbeaten in the ACC, and they'll be in the playoff. Now, no team has ever won the national championship after losing week 1, but whatever. This is not about winning the national championship. It's about getting to the playoff, and Clemson can still get there. They just now their room for error is gone. So, yeah, I mean, now if is LSU going to be the best team that UCLA plays this year? Time will tell. I don't know. Right? We'll see how good
Does UCLA play Oregon?
UCLA, I think
I guess they would technically, potentially, I guess in the Pac-12 championship, but obviously you skip sometimes teams.
Yeah, I forget who their misses are. 1 second, I got it right here. They do play Oregon.
You play every team. That's a big game.
So their misses are Washington State and
which won't matter.
Stanford. Oh no, they play Stanford. Okay, Cal. No, they play Cal.
Which might not be good either.
No, I'm sorry.
Oregon State?
Yeah, I think it might be Oregon State. Yeah, so not ideal.
Well, to me, as long as they play Oregon, that means they have the chance to beat Utah, Oregon, SC. Like, they can have pretty good wins because a couple of those teams are going to win 9 games, right? So if you beat 9-win teams, like even if LSU is not good, I did have the thought like it's just going to be hard for Ed to, A&M, Bama. I guess he could beat Auburn. Does he beat both the Mississippi teams? Now I have to look at their schedule. If he plays Georgia or Florida, like, is he going to go like 7-5? Or they're so talented they end up going 8-4, and they could even have. I remember they have the last couple of years, like I guess 2 years ago they didn't lose, but they can, if they're just on, beat Florida, right? They just, or A&M, like they have the talent if it just goes well in a game to beat anyone but Bama.
Right. So it's 8-4 with a bowl loss that they don't want to play in 8-5, maybe.
Yeah. But 8-4, like when you're talking, but before the bowl game, that 8-4, or as they're getting 6-7 wins, does look better as the season goes on, right? You need, to me, if you're UCLA, like here's where it does not translate. Do they win 4 games? Like, are they just the biggest talking point, like the biggest disaster of a team? That would be bad. I'm with you. When you watch it, you don't feel like they were that bad. UCLA's outplayed them and they're solid, but that conference, if it snowballs and then it starts, like, is there rumors by early October, like Ed Ogeron could get fired?
But he could. But part of it is what you did. Like now you're UCLA, you got your attention, right? Now the spotlight is on you. Do you take care of business? Because we got the question in the chat, like, one loss, does one loss Clemson get in over undefeated UCLA in the college football playoff? No. If you go undefeated in the Power 5, you make the playoff. The question is what happens with two one-loss teams, right? Who are both conference champions. That's where it gets dicey. Like if UCLA's one loss, they win the conference championship. Clemson's one loss, they win. Then we start comparing, whatever. Because then UCLA's loss would probably be worse than Clemson's loss, right? Clemson's loss would be neutral road, basically, Georgia. UCLA's loss would either be Fresno State or a league loss. But historically, if you're a one-loss team, you are getting one loss. You're getting in. UCLA's getting in. But no one in the Pac-12 has ever gone unbeaten in the Pac-12 era.
If Chip Kelly, whatever the record is,
he still has 9 league games to play, John. We're a ways to go.
If Chip Kelly takes UCLA to the playoffs, it's one of the biggest Pac-12 stories in the history of the conference, right? It'd be remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the college, because he would have taken now 2 teams. How many guys have taken 2 teams to the college football playoff? Or I guess the first one's BCS.
It didn't exist, but but he'd be the equivalent. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Has anybody else done it twice with 2 different programs?
Saban.
Jimbo? A&M?
No, because Jimbo, no. Ogeron, no. Yeah, I mean, probably not.
Maybe one day,
Urban technically would have.
Yeah, Urban.
He would have.
Yeah. I mean, it's
a short list.
You start talking about him like the genius again if he does it. Because here's the one thing we know, like you can get players there at UCLA.
Will it count if Chris Peterson comes back to Washington next year and takes them back for a second time in like 3 years?
I'm watching Chris Peterson on TV the other day going, what's his next coach? Is he coming back? Because he does the thing where he takes a year off and just hangs out on the dock and rides his boat around Seattle.
But God, that is the school for him. Like that is his spot.
I know.
Like to me, Washington and UCLA are like the two. He's a West Coast guy. He's not going to coach in the other conferences. Like that, just
UC Davis. I mean, Dan Hawkins might get another job if he keeps it rolling at UCD.